Devin Booker and empty stats. This man's name and that phrase have gone hand in hand pretty much his entire career, and that whole argument relies on the idea that he can only play well or perform at a high level when he's on a bad team where he must take all the shots. But now, what else is there to say? Because in his playoff debut in Game 1 versus the Lakers, he went off for 34 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds in a win. I mean, seriously, there's nothing anyone can really say to support the empty stats agenda. And this video was honestly late because, as we all know, the Phoenix Suns were great in the regular season. They finished with the number 2 seed in the Deep Western Conference with Booker averaging nearly 26 points. But I'm actually glad I waited to make this now because it's even better. Booker's postseason debut did not disappoint, and it's great because his first 5 seasons he never received genuine credit, but finally he is. And today, we're gonna look deeper into how this empty stats narrative began and how Devin Booker is disproving the biggest lie of his NBA career. But before I move on, what's up YouTube? Plug Speaks back with a vid. If you're new, first of all, welcome and go ahead and sub. Also like the vid if you enjoy. I upload 3 to 4 times a week and we are grinding for 5K, so I'd for sure appreciate it. But back to the vid though. Now, the beginning of this narrative surrounding Devin Booker, or at least when it really began to grow traction, had to have been after his 70-point career high performance against the Celtics in just his second year as a pro. Devin Booker was only 20 or 21 at the time, and yet, the thing many people decided to focus on was the fact that the game was a blowout loss for the Suns, and that's crazy. I mean, sure, if he was an NBA veteran and had done this, you could say it's not as impressive. It's still 70 points, but it wouldn't be as impressive. But Booker was only 20 and became the youngest player to ever drop 70 and just the 6th player to do so in the history of the game. The takeaway from this should have never been whether he won or not. It should have been that this guy is an incredible scorer with the potential to become one of the best offensive players in the league. But as we move on, it gets worse because Booker continued to improve offensively and all around each year, but their record continued to be embarrassing each year until the 2019-2020 season where they went 34-39, which is still far from great, but hey, it was a huge improvement compared to the other seasons. And yet, the narrative that he could only perform well on a bad team kept going strong. People kept pushing it. His doubters didn't care that they went 8-0 in the bubble. They didn't care that the Suns had improved heavily compared to their past season. They didn't even care that Devin Booker had no all-star level teammates on his team. They wanted to see wins, W's, and finally, the main argument against Booker is useless. Because as we all know, this season, the Suns went out and got a very solid 51-21 record, with Booker averaging 26-4-4 on 48% from the field and 34% from 3. And in his first playoff game ever, this man shared the floor with proven superstars like LeBron, Anthony Davis, and even Chris Paul, but managed to be the best player on the court. So yeah, the media is giving him his credit and fans are too, but man, the disrespect went on for years and years. And before I get into what else this Lakers-Suns series will prove, we've got to highlight some more of the disrespect. We're not glossing over it. Because if we look at Devin Booker's NBA career resume so far, the man was the youngest player to reach 9K points, he won a 3-point contest, and more. But even his most honorable reward of 2 All-Star selections came with disrespect, because in both of his All-Star appearances, a player that was actually voted to the team by media, fans, and coaches needed to sit out with injury for Booker to be put on it as a replacement. That's crazy. And sure, you could say the Western Conference is deep. He should just be happy he made the team. And I won't pretend that's not a fair point, because it is. But it just further shows that Devin Booker has been underappreciated for the most part of his career, and it's been mostly by the media and fans. The actual NBA players value what Booker brings to the table. I mean, LeBron said it best in a tweet not too long ago, where he basically said, D-Book is the most disrespected player in our game today. And LeBron could have added the whole Phoenix Suns franchise in that tweet, because in the middle of their best season in years, maybe a whole decade, the media has been pushing a scenario where Devin Booker leaves to go to the Lakers. It doesn't get worse than that. Clearly the media has no shame, none of it. But yeah, moving on. We've got to talk about Devin Booker's chances at winning in this Lakers-Suns series and what his play in the series will continue to prove. And I gotta be honest, I do not see the Suns winning this series. I believe the Lakers will win in either 7 or 6, but it has nothing to do with Devin Booker not playing like Devin Booker. I expect him to be great, but basically, I just believe the Lakers' playoff experience led by LeBron will be too much for the Suns as the series extends. Not to mention, Anthony Davis will not play as poorly as he did in Game 1 throughout the series, or he better not, or they might get swept. But back to Devin Booker. This Lakers-Suns series should prove that it won't be long before Booker is a top 10 player in the league. Yes, top 10. Because the empty stats agenda is dead. And even after Chris Paul leaves or retires, if you just add an all-star teammate to Booker's side, or just surround him with respectable teammates, he will lead them to make noise. But yeah, even though I believe the Suns will lose this series, like I said, Devin Booker will not be the reason. He will not disappoint. He'll probably average over 25 points on efficient shooting throughout the 6 or 7 games, and that's great production. But get this, in my opinion, that's not even the most impressive part. It's how he gets his points and just his mindset towards the whole playoffs. Because for one, Devin Booker is at that point where he receives the ultimate respect on defense. The Lakers were running double teams at him all throughout the second half, and Booker continued to play at a high level. He's just a pure scorer. Whether it's a mid-range pull-up jumper, a mid-range fadeaway, or some post moves with footwork in the paint, or just a pull-up three-pointer, he'll just score on anybody. And he does this while being defended as if teams know he's the man that dropped 70 at 20. But the other thing to point out is Booker's whole mentality towards the playoffs. I mean, before the season, every time the Suns missed it, we heard something about Booker's desire to play in the playoffs, that he was hungry for the opportunity. And I'm sure most people believed him. But at the end of the day, the actions speak louder than words. So for Booker to go out there and drop the most points by any Suns player in a playoff debut was great. And it just shows he wasn't capping. I mean, the Suns are now up 1-0 with a real chance at advancing. Listen, I may have said the Lakers are going to beat them, but if they beat the Lakers, I mean, who's to say they don't go all the way to the finals? I'm not saying they beat the Nets, but the West is pretty much wide open, and it's not going to change. Devin Booker is only 24 years old, and it's tempting, but I won't even use that corny pun, oh, the future is bright in Phoenix for the Suns, but I mean, it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Y'all let me know how you feel about Devin Booker exposing the biggest lie about his NBA career and the Suns' chances in these playoffs. But that's it. I appreciate y'all watching as always. Like the sub, share it, sub if new, all of that. And I'm out.